Today in the lab, we're working on, drum roll please, an Amiga 500. But wait, there's more. We also have another Amiga 500. uh, so I've had both of these Amiga 500s for forever. I got them in the mid 90s from a family friend who'd previously been an Amiga software developer. But as times changed, they left the Amiga behind and were cleaning house, and so I was the recipient of both of these. Both of these 500s have been in pieces for quite some time, since before the pandemic in the case of one of them, and actually since the early 2000s in the case of the other one. And so one of the goals of this series is to reduce the number of things in my house that are in pieces. So I've got too many half-finished projects going on, and I'm hoping that I can get these back together pretty quickly. The 500 on the left has a Revision 5 motherboard and is what's called a Chicken Lips Amiga. Now, among some collectors, these are highly desirable. I believe this one was manufactured sometime between 87 and 88, which makes it one of the earliest Amiga 500s. And it has several quirks to it. Now, for collectors, these may be seen as desirable, but for day-to-day usage, the quirks in these early Amiga 500 motherboards can present some issues. By contrast, the 500 here on the right has a Revision 6 motherboard, and I think was manufactured sometime around 1990. So by Revision 6, Commodore had worked out most of the kinks with the Amiga 500 motherboard, and this one has the broadest range of compatibility with aftermarket accessories and upgrades and things of that nature. I don't have any data to back this up, but I believe that the Revision 6 is probably the most common Revision Amiga 500 motherboard, at least here in the United States. So this first episode is going to focus on the Revision 6 Amiga. We'll work on the Revision 5 in a subsequent episode. One thing you've probably noticed about this Revision 6 here is that it's missing a key. So before the pandemic, I had this apart. I was working on cleaning the keyboard, as you do, and the box that I was holding all the keys in accidentally fell off my work table, and the keys scattered everywhere. Now I was able to find all of the keys and all of the springs except for this one. Now in the meantime, I've had to move out of my house, remodel it, move back in, all kinds of stuff. So I've kind of lost hope for finding this last key. And these keys are starting to yellow anyhow. And I started to think, well, since I can't have the full original set, I might as well look at buying one of these replacement sets of keys that are now being manufactured. So I bought this set from a UK retailer, and I tried to buy them directly from A1200.net, but they were sold out of these at the time I went to order, so I had to order from a reseller. Shipping for these individually wasn't too bad. They came from the UK, and they pretty much survived the trip, with the exception of some damage to the key holder that they get shipped on. That's really no big deal. The keys themselves look great. I'm really impressed with the workmanship and the fit and finish here. It's a very nice product. And I think if I had to replace another set of keys, I wouldn't hesitate to buy another set of these. Now, one thing you'll notice, though, is that these are black. And that really doesn't go with the original Amiga 500 case color. The reason that I went with black keys is because I was browsing A1200.net's website, and I came across this case. So this is a special edition case related to a video game called Scourge of the Underkind. Now, I don't really know much about this game. It looks like a pretty good game, but I really liked the gray color of this case, and I thought it would look really nice with some black keycaps. Now, getting this shipped to the United States was very expensive. It cost me 80 euros to ship this thing. That's almost half as much as the actual case itself. The case itself only cost 170 euros. Expensive shipping besides, this made it to the US without any issue, and besides the exterior box getting roughed up, none of the important things inside of it were damaged, so I'm very pleased with that. So after removing the external decorative sleeve, you see this comes packed in a nice tight box. And we have some external panels here. A button for the floppy drive. And then the case itself. Now, that bag in the corner, that's actually the mouse that goes with it. As you can see, this is a nice looking case. It looks just like the original, but gray. Also here in the box, because this is a special edition, is a vinyl record. And I guess this has music from the game on it. Now, if I would have ordered a bit earlier, I would have gotten a mouse pad and some disc labels for when I download the game and put it on the disc. But I guess I didn't order early enough because neither of those came with my package. And here's the mouse out of the packaging. Looks just like a tank mouse, but gray. And comes with all the hardware you need, including the slides on the bottom. Before I put this Amiga in its new case, I run through my normal bevy of tests using Amiga Test Kit. And the only thing that I've found is that a couple keys no longer work on the keyboard. Fortunately, this is a Mitsumi keyboard, and I've repaired these kind before. In fact, depending on time of publishing, I have either 1 or 2 videos on my channel where I go through that process. So we'll have to go through that process again. Seems like I repair a lot of keyboards. Fortunately, the LEDs on the keyboard work. This is a common failure point where the LEDs stop working. The other problem that I have is this kit came with a floppy drive button, but this floppy drive button only fits the Chinon FB354 floppy drive. But I have an F354E, and the button doesn't fit. The other drive I have is an Epson drive, and it doesn't fit that either. So I've ordered a broken drive of the correct model off of eBay, and when that comes, I guess I'll have to fix it. So while I work on those 2 other things, let's get this thing taken apart so that we can at least start to put it in the new case. Now this Amiga's already unscrewed, but there are 6 screws on the back, and to my knowledge they are all the same size. There's 3 on each side of the case. Depending on if anyone's ever serviced your Amiga before, one of these 3 screws might be hiding under a warranty sticker. Next, after we remove the top case, the keyboard is attached in 2 places, one by a screw and then one by a connector. One of the screws is attached to the floppy drive, and this acts as the ground for the keyboard. And after that's removed, there's a cable that connects the keyboard to the main board. After we remove that screw and the keyboard cable, we can lift the keyboard out, but be careful about the retaining clips that are at the bottom of the case. Then we can remove the RF shield. Now this is normally held in place by these tabs that are folded over. I've already unbent them, but you may have to do that for your Amiga. This RF shield doesn't really matter, so I'm not going to put it back when we reassemble this. Now let's remove the floppy drive. There's a ribbon cable and a power cable that are connected directly to the motherboard. And then if we flip the machine over, there are 3 screws holding in place the floppy drive. Now one of these is down in a recessed hole, so you need a long screwdriver to get to it. But once those 3 screws are out, we should be able to very carefully flip back over the Amiga and have the floppy drive be left in place. Then we should be able to remove it and the bottom RF shield as one piece. Now I find this operation a bit tricky, but once you find the right angle, it should come right out. Now let's compare the old case to the new case. So while these externally look the same, there are some important differences here. The first difference is that the 6 screw holes for the exterior screws, all of them have brass inserts. This is a big improvement, as one of the easiest ways to damage an Amiga 500 case would be to over-tighten the screws on the outside and crack the plastic. These brass inserts prevent that from happening. Oddly enough, it's not all of the screw holes though. The motherboard ones don't have brass inserts, so you still have to be careful. Next, the cover for the underside expansion port now has ventilation holes in it, and this should help keep the Amiga cooler than the solid panel from before. Next, there are 2 additional expansion options in this case. The first is on the back, and the kit comes with a panel for an Ethernet jack, or a blank panel if you don't want to use it or want to try to drill something custom. There's also one underneath the floppy drive that has holes in it for HDMI, USB, and an SD card reader. I believe that these new expansion ports are designed to work with the Vampire series of accelerators, but these are pretty standard ports that you can get from a lot of different solutions. Lastly, this case has the signatures of a lot of the Amiga hardware developers. This wasn't present on the original cases and is a nice touch. There are 2 other differences that I've noticed between the original case and this case. First is, my original case has a plastic clip that holds in the bottom of the motherboard. This is missing on the new case, and interestingly enough, it's also not present on my Rev 5 case. I don't think this really makes a difference one way or another. It's just something I noticed. The other difference is around the floppy drive mounting. And I think this was changed to accommodate the different cables better, but I don't know. The old case has a piece of plastic that juts up to form a support, and this is missing on the new case. We'll see if it makes any difference when I get to mounting the floppy drives. Now I've put the motherboard and the bottom RF shield into the new case, and I've tightened down the 4 screws that hold the motherboard to the bottom part of the case. However, until I fix the keyboard and get that new floppy drive in, really can't move much further on reassembling this thing. So all that'll have to wait for next time. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.